Yeah, so give me just a second and I'll get everybody squared away with that.
Yeah, I just now we have a file to talk about the deliverance. Get your papers.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Is P capitalized? Do you remember?
Okay.
I don't think so.
I should get you out the file for a second so I can talk about the deliverance.
Yeah.
My house is just down the road, if you remember that. Yeah.
Oh, and
You used to actually have a bed though.
why are you walking so slow?
Anthony, it sounds like you got a live mic.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. Look, fish.
Ow.
Sorry about that.
Yep, no problem. All right, so the idea is that this case study is separate from the final exam. It's all happening around the same time period, but they are not the same. Okay, the final exam is gonna be just like the midterm. I'm gonna give you two situations. You're gonna analyze those from an ethical perspective, okay? It's gonna start on Sunday. It'll be open until Sunday. You write the documents up, upload it, and that's it. Okay, the case study is separate from that. And I did make some changes like I talked about in class, so I wanna go over those really quickly. First of all, the final exam, or not the final exam, the case study is going to be due Sunday, April 25th. So the Sunday before spring break. You can turn it in anytime before that, but I'm going to put the lock on it on Sunday, April 25th. Once you turn it in, the second part of the assignment is that you're gonna post it to the forum post right here. Then you're gonna go and read and comment on the case studies of 3 other students. So let me show you what that's gonna look like. Okay, choose 3 to comment on.
Dr. Lambert.
Yes. Oh,
Could
I need
you
to share it.
Yes,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay, let's do that, because that would have been a little too easy. All right, so I need to get these, I need to update this. This is still referring to some of the stuff from last semester. I apologize, because I just copied it into this semester and I'm getting that fixed. Okay, so you should be posting a copy by Sunday, April 25th at 11:55. You are then going to comment on 3 other case studies. This is what you're going to comment on. Number 1, a paragraph. Have they given you enough background to understand the case? Number 2, have they identified the players? Do you understand who would be affected by this situation? And 3, have they shown different viewpoints? How would different ethical models address the question? Okay, so I'm going to use Zach. I'm going to pick on Zach for a minute because he presented an idea yesterday. The Jackson Hole Airport, or Tuesday, the Jackson Hole Airport is closing for a couple of months for renovation. Because they are closing, they are laying off their employees during that time period. The cost of living in Jackson Hole is such that without employment or support, it is very difficult for these employees to remain in that area. What ethical responsibility or what ethical obligation does the airport have toward those people? Okay, so that would be my question. So I would ask, first of all, did Zach give me enough information to understand the question? Do I understand who would be involved? Well, you've got the workers, you've got the city of Jackson Hole, you've got the owners of the airport. That's at least 3, right? This last one would be, well, a utilitarian would say this is what the airport should do. A justice-based perspective would say this is what the airport should do. And ethics of virtue would say this is what the airport should do. So the question you're going to answer in that question number 3 is, have they given you enough evidence to understand and appreciate how different ethical viewpoints, did they explain that well? Okay, 1 paragraph for question 1, 1 paragraph for question 2, 1 paragraph for question 3. You do this 3 times for different cases. Okay, this starts Sunday the 25th. It will go until May 7th, the end of finals week. So you're going to have 2 activities to do over finals. The final exam and this, because I want to give you guys enough time to do this and all of the other things. To tell it's going to be okay, I promise.
No.
You can do this.
Yeah, they don't.
But I'm trying to give you plenty of extra time so that way you can do this among all of the other things. Paragraph-ish. I'm not going to expect a lot of writing because I recognize this is spring break, this is final exams. I'm not going to go crazy over this. Okay? Yes, Kate.
You mentioned you wanted this on PDA format as well? Or PDA?
PDF?
PDF, or?
Doesn't matter.
No, not like APA.
APA, yes, I do. This, I'm not going to worry about it. There's nothing APA in this has.
Okay.
In the case study, I am going to ask for APA.
Okay.
Things like internal headings and citations.
Did I nail it last time? Did I do okay? Because I've never done APA before.
I'll be honest with you, I can't remember.
Okay.
I am not an APA Nazi.
Okay.
I am not going to be freaking out about this or dropping your grade because of APA. I just want you to realize we should be involved. You should be using it.
Okay.
Okay? Does anybody else have any other questions? These are great questions, by the way. Anybody online? Okay. Yeah, Sam.
So the dilemma I was thinking of using is pretty industry specific.
Perfect.
It could affect people on the outside.
That's
Is that
okay.
something where it's like minor to anyone outside of industry, but more particular? Should I bring that up or leave it out?
It is completely okay if this question is something that's specific to your field and only people in your field would be affected by it. It does not have to have general public impact. Okay, the biggest thing for me is that it's something that is relevant and interesting to you. It's something that you know enough about that you can talk about it intelligently. Okay, if it's in your field, even better, because that's why you took this class in the first place. Okay, but if it's not, I mean, I think Zach's example is a perfect illustration of why we're talking, because it's a business-related question. What should I expect from that employer? As an employee, what should I be able to expect from it? Or not, right? Especially if I believe in free enterprise, the employer should be able to make all the decisions, right? But how does that affect me as an employee? What right should I have if I believe that free enterprise, the employer should be able to make as many decisions as they want without interference from the government? How does that result in fair decisions for employees if the employer has the power to decide whatever they want? If I get rid of the legal minimum, how do I encourage business to respect an ethical minimum when there's no stick? It's a great question, okay? Anything else? And please, we're going to be talking about this more. I'd love it when you come and say, here's what I'd like to talk about. You sharing yours is going to happen, because I have a feeling a lot of you are sitting here going, I don't even freaking know what I want to write about. I don't even know where to start. Every time somebody shares an idea that they have, it's one step closer for you, helping you to figure out something you would like to talk about. And that is helpful to everybody. Yes,
I should remind if you want.
go for it.
So my ethical dilemma that I'm planning has to do with the linear dose threshold, which means any radiation is bad for you.
Okay.
And we have a lot of evidence to suggest that's just not true. And so there's a lot of procedures and safety systems in place to prevent people from getting dosed when it may not be necessary. They may be too strict, which harms the industry.
Okay. So then, but here's the thing. That is a very specific to your field question, but it's a huge question to the public because it affects our attitudes about nuclear power generation. It's going to affect our ability. I mean, people freak out about cell phone towers and the radiation coming from a cell phone tower. When you start talking about modular nuclear reactors, holy freaking cow. So that is something that, even though it sounds like it's a very industry-specific question, it has huge public impact, which would be totally fine. All right, any other questions?
I have one.
Okay, go for it.
So what if we write the same kind of ethical dilemma as someone else that we don't know?
Here's the reality. As long as you don't write the paper and then two people turn in the exact same paper,
Right.
I'm not gonna have a problem if people talk about the same thing.
Okay.
Because they're gonna make different arguments, they're gonna express themselves differently. So as long as I don't see evidence of collusion, where people make the exact same arguments with the exact same evidence and the exact same explanations, sharing topics is totally, that's just smart. You got a very limited amount of intellectual energy at this point. Realistically speaking, you're in the downhill slope of this semester. Folks, you got to use momentum wherever you can. If somebody else is pushing you forward, take it. I am totally fine with that. I do not expect everybody to push everything uphill. So I'm fine with that. With those stipulations. It should not be, you can work in teams to come up with ideas, but I should not see the same arguments, the same examples, the same evidence, the same citations. That's when I'm saying that you're borrowing a little too much wind from somebody else.
Right. I was just saying, like, if I
No,
wrote something and someone else did it, you know. But,
no. I think you guys can understand the difference between getting an idea from somebody else and, well, here's my paper, I'll just make some tweaks to it.
okay.
I don't expect that to happen. So, all right, so let's get started with today. We've got the end of chapter 10 plus our video, okay? I apologize that I forgot to get the marked version of the questions up. So that might have affected how you guys did your reading and prep for today, and I'll try to be better about that. All right, so if I'm thinking correctly, Kaysen, you're up first.
Okay, is 32 available?
32 is available.
I would say that is true. And
Okay,
I think that is because, I mean, if you're stressed, obviously your mind's going to be on other things and you're going to be more distracted, might cause you to make mistakes. But also I have heard that if you work a 4-10 schedule, that they are also more productive since they have a little bit more free time to take care of those things that are weighing on their minds. So
there's a lot more physical and emotional benefits to productivity when people are not stressed, okay? So what does that suggest from an ethical perspective?
from an ethical perspective, I think for the benefit of everyone, for the health of your employees as well as your company's health, I guess if you want to put it that way, you should take into consideration the stress that is being put on your employees. Now, maybe that doesn't necessarily mean a 4-day work week, 4-10 schedule, but there's making sure you're not putting too much pressure and too much of a workload on every single individual.
Okay, so the idea is that while we expect employees to be agents of the company, the ethical expectation is realizing that human capital is different from other kinds of capital. Meaning the people that work for us are not just tools to be used, but they are ends of themselves. They are not just things to make profit for the company, but I have to care for them. And the better I care for them, the tendency is that care for employees tends to result in higher productivity and better benefits. So being aware of and compassionate towards employees is good business practice. It does pay dividends instead of just being focused solely on bottom line. Excellent.
Also, can I kind of add on to that a little bit?
Absolutely.
I would also say it's slightly false because like some people, I would say that it's slightly false if it's pressure induced stress, because a lot of okay, not a lot, but some people work extremely better under pressure. And so I would say that it's true to an extent, but false a little.
Yeah, I would say that it is not a exclusive truth. It is not always true in every case. But the
Yeah, that's
majority
kind
of
of what I
time,
was trying to say.
that this is not exclusively true. I would agree with that. Okay, Logan, are you with us today? Logan going once. Logan going twice. Okay, Cattell. Number 23. Okay.
Which branch of computer science uses computers to replicate human behavior with
Artificial intelligence. Okay. And so there are questions about if we can use computers and automation to eliminate unnecessary human effort, what is the ethical challenge of that?
Is this a question for anyone and everyone?
For anyone.
Oh, okay, that's funny. I don't remember why.
I'm just saying, so if we can automate using computers, robotics, and other things, if we can replace monotonous or dangerous work environments so that humans are not exposed to those, but yet we can still receive the benefits of that, what are some of the ethical difficulties or challenges?
Wouldn't it be that human jobs are just getting replaced, and so we don't have like the opportunity to do that kind of work?
Okay, that is a very significant question. Okay. Okay.
That's what I was gonna say.
Okay, so it's a loss of jobs for humans. Okay.
I can see if it's dangerous, then that's a good thing. But when it isn't, and you're just replacing them, and then you're replacing more people, they don't have a job.
Well, but if I replace them, don't I then have the opportunity to find new ways of employing those same people, perhaps in better ways that can do things?
Can there be an issue with the AI always being able to do what a human would be able to do? Like if they're replacing someone in a job where it can be dangerous, if it isn't able to react the same way as a person, I don't know, I'm trying to think. Someone brought up surgery or something.
Mm-hmm.
How if we were to replace surgeons with robots, if something bad happened, if it wasn't able to react the same way or with as much like immediate response or immediately like be able to care for the patient in the same way, you know?
No, totally makes sense. Yeah, I mean, this gets back to the AI driving. If we allow computers to drive and computers are unable, or studies have shown that the AI driving a car is less likely to identify people of color as humans on the street because they were programmed to recognize Caucasians as humans, and therefore if you're not Caucasian, they're less likely to identify you as human. Therefore, they're less likely to, for example, these self-driving cars are designed, if you see a human, you must stop, you must avoid the accident. If it's not, then avoid the accident unless it's likely to cause damage or stuff like that. They're not going to swerve and cause an accident to avoid hitting a squirrel, for example. The problem is, these AIs are sometimes identifying people of color as if they were animals or other obstacles that do not warrant the same type of drastic reaction that they would if they were white. Can we trust it then? And I think that's kind of what you're getting at. Okay, Sam, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to add on, when you talk about something like a nuclear facility, where some of these jobs could realistically be replaced with automation, the issue that comes up is what if there's a significant error, because you have human fallibility and human error, but there's also error that takes place with electronics. And so if I were to come up with something like a nuclear reactor, yes, you might save efficiency and time, labor costs. However, we've had accidents that we've only recovered from because human interaction was able to recover from them. So if we remove that, those could have been significantly worse.
Well, and it also gets into the question of, and this is a double-edged sword, the ability to maintain ethical standard. For example, utilitarianism argues that which is that yields the greatest benefit to the greatest number of people at the lowest cost to the lowest number of people is the decision that should be made, right? There might be times in a nuclear reactor, I am going to have to vent this thing, or it's going to result in a massive explosion. If I vent, the 10 people in this area will be exposed to lethal levels of radiation. But if I don't, then it's likely to harm both a significant land mass as well as the 100,000 people that live nearby that are benefited by the production of this nuclear reactor. A human might look at that question and hesitate because they are aware of the ethical impact of offering up those 10 people. They might still have to make that decision, but they might struggle with it. They might delay, and that delay might result in negative outcome. A computer would be much more likely, it's programmed in, it doesn't even hesitate, it simply executes the program at the right time, and those people are killed. But are we comfortable with substituting locked in ethical standards for humanity's ability to question? There are times where you're not allowed to have those questions, right? They did tests, for example, with officers that served in nuclear missile silos. If they received the message, you're supposed to launch, how many of them actually turned the key to fire the missile? And they found that 40% of the time it didn't happen. That means something to me because my dad was a nuclear missile officer for a while. And I never really thought about the reality that my dad sat in a bunker in Minot, North Dakota for hours on end, just waiting to take a key off of his neck, turn it, and end the world. How does that affect you mentally to know that if that comes, you're not supposed to question, you're not supposed to think, you're supposed to simply do? Okay, so that gets into an artificial intelligence. We can understand how to do things, but can we program ethical standards into that? And are we comfortable with the computer executing that ethical standard? without any question or abstract thinking. Okay? All right, Megan, are you with us?
Yeah, can I do number 6?
Number 6. Go for it.
It says which types of workers are more likely to take advantage of flexible work policies? And I said workers with family duties.
That is a huge one. Been one of the biggest changes because of COVID. And it's been both good and bad, right? The opportunity to be home has radically changed the way that we view healthcare, the way we view family interactions and relationships. But at the same time, it's made it more difficult for us to separate work and home life and the implications of that. Okay, I was at a meeting today where one of the faculty members was working from home and had a cat crawling all over them throughout the entire meeting. That's normal, right? I have 2 cats at home myself. You hear them meowing all the time. But it really does something to the sense of formality of the meeting when somebody's got a creature crawling all over them. Or when kids are, I mean, how many times have you seen these videos of kids breaking into Zoom calls? Okay? It really does beg the question of the necessity for formality in the workplace. Okay, Winter, you're up.
I want to do number 7.
Okay?
So which of the following is the best example of bias against work start time flexibility or flex time? And I put C, that managers who early starters is more motivating.
Okay. Why is that?
It mentioned it in the book, but it was like going to work later like makes a worker seem like less motivated to like get their work done.
Mm-hmm.
So managers might see someone who comes in at 6 versus 10 as more willing to get their work done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my boss before she retired was this way. About every 4 or 5 months, she would, because I was the faculty director for the faculty in the department, about every 4 months, like clockwork, she would come in and she would say, I walk around the floor at 8 a.m. and most of the offices are dark, which means your faculty aren't working. I want them here at 8 o'clock. And my question to her was, is the fact that they're here at 8 o'clock mean that they're going to be more productive just because they're in their office? I mean, they're just as likely to watch Netflix if they're here at 8 o'clock, as opposed to if I make sure that they're teaching their classes on time, that they're getting their work graded and back to students in a meaningful way, that their students are having access to them in the way that they need, does that mean that that happens at 8 o'clock? And the answer was no. But that she was from the mentality, you should be here from 8 to 5. And if you're not, then you must be slacking. And if I want you here from 8 to 5, if you're here at 7:50, it means you're a more serious worker than the person who shows up at 8, even though that's when their shift starts. And to my response is, well, they're on salary. They don't have a shift. They're on call whenever they need to work. Because students email me on Saturdays. Students email me at 6 o'clock at night. I'm not going to say no to answering those questions, you know? So, what's that?
I'm not on there today.
Oh.
I
Oh,
was
okay.
just gonna wait until class was over and then I was gonna go with you.
All right, well, then you're up now.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Andrew, you just have to hope that he doesn't take your question.
Did anyone do number 41?
Number 41. I have to ask, Andrew, was that your question? 41
That was
has
not.
to take my question.
Yeah, that was not my question.
Okay.
What is number 40?
Number 44. Is number 44 also okay with you?
Yep, that's good too.
Okay, so you're like,
Yeah, I'll choose number 24.
okay. We'll get to that one then. Okay, go for it.
Is it ethical to expect an employee to live close to work? This one was kind of like, I don't know, because you could have on-call employees, like where I work, we have a maintenance tech. And they have to be kind of close to come in and do like, work on the facility. But I said we should have the freedom to live where we want outside of work, as long as we can be there on time and do our job. But I think it is a good idea to offer housing to employees, a nice amenity, I guess.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's a good thing, that the company cannot put restrictions on how far away you live as long as you are able to complete all assigned tasks in a reasonable time. Right? The hospital cannot say all doctors have to live within 10 minutes, because if there is an emergency, I need every single doctor to be able to get to the hospital. Right? I can't do that. And so it's encouraged. And if it's a real important issue, then the company can be encouraged to provide means to support that. But companies cannot require, or should not be requiring employees to live in certain areas or to do certain things. Okay. Andrew, you said you wanted to do number 24?
Yep, number 24.
All right, go for it.
So what percentage of workplace activities could be automated with artificial intelligence? And the answer to that is D, 50%. And I think what's most interesting about that is it's not even implementing new technology. It's using the AI and automation that already exist.
Think about that. 50% of our jobs could already be replaced using existing technology, not even the new stuff. But the big question that remains is, when we've created an economy that requires work in order for us to receive compensation, which is necessary for us to have the economy that we have, that's one of the big reasons why we can't automate. If people are out of jobs and that's how they earn their living, yeah, then that's a threat. If we could shift our economy so that people could make a living in other ways, then we could say, look, we're going, for example, if I could, look, I'm going to stop here because I realize it sounds very political and I don't want to get into this, but it does beg the question of certain kind of assumptions that we have made about how things have to work, that you must produce something so you get paid so you can make things happen. Then any change to that model, if 50% of the work that we do now could be automated and 50% of the people that are currently employed are no longer employed, what would that do to our economy? Oh my hell, it would be disastrous beyond all belief. But if we were able to shift our economy so that those people could find new things to do, and that people that have traditionally not been compensated could find new ways. For example, it would not be harmful for people to stay at home and care for children. Imagine if we made that a significantly paid, every year on Women's Day, they always post a thing that says, how much would you have to pay somebody to be what a homemaker, male or female? What if they stayed at home, how much would you have to pay them to do all the jobs they do? And they said the average stay-at-home parent, mother or father, would make about $150,000 a year. Right? You're all of these things. And they're saying, but we provide no compensation, even though that is a major driver of all of the work that gets done, because people are there to provide all those services that are necessary. And so it begs the question, well, what happens if we change the way that we did things so that we could automate what needed to be automated and allow people to pursue other ways of being, it gets at this idea, well, people should be working. Well, people do work. They work hard, even though they're not compensated for it. We're willing to pay basketball players and football players millions of dollars to play games, but then other people who are involved in pretty serious activities like raising children, maintaining households, are considered non-essential or even non-existent workers. And again, I understand that that's getting into political discussion and economics that I am not qualified to discuss. And so please do not feel like I'm trying to indoctrinate or press an argument. but it does beg a question. Sorry.
Can I also add on to that a little bit?
Yeah.
They actually opened a store, I believe it's in Arizona. Amazon opened a grocery store. And so you walk in, you put your phone in your basket, and your phone connects to the cart through your Amazon account. And then you go grab all your stuff, walk out. There's no employees there. I believe the only part that people do there are stock the back of the store, and then when it detects that something is low, it'll like go through a tube system and restock everything.
Yep. Actually, they used to have this. They called it an automat. And this was like, I mean, if you watch some movies from like the 40s and 50s, these would be restaurants where you walk in and there was this entire wall with these little glass doors, and you'd walk in and you just grab the food you wanted, pay for it, and then you ate. There was no service. There were just people in the back that were just putting the food into those areas. We didn't need to, I mean, and it cut out an incredible amount of non-necessary, we kind of reverted from that. But there's arguments of, especially in COVID, the more we could create workerless eating situations, it would provide better ways for people to be able to get food in pandemic type environments. Kind of crazy, kind of scary, but it's true. Yeah, and I've heard of the Amazon Go markets. All right. Josh, are you with us today?
Yes, I am. Can I do
All right.
19?
You can. You're a little faint. So if you can get a little closer to the mic or turn up the audio, that would be great.
Okay. What is one way telecommuting can be accomplished? It's A, having conference calls via Skype. That could be done through also Zoom and other video chats these days. Reason why it's not B, C, and D is because those are all in person and telecommuting's being at home.
Okay, I'm actually going to disagree with this just a little bit. Okay, if you remember, we talked about this on Tuesday and we said that there were two different kinds of concepts. There was telecommuting and telework. Okay, so what's the difference? And so I'm going to say that A is an example of telework, not telecommuting. Can you tell me what the difference is?
One second.
Okay. This is totally off book, so if you're kind of going, I have no clue what he's asking, that's okay.
Well, it's crazy. This sounds just, I'm going to quickly Google search to get an idea of the difference between the two. All telecommuting jobs are teleworking jobs, but not all teleworking jobs are telecommuting jobs.
That is true. What's the difference?
Teleworking is more of remote work. You can literally work from anywhere with no restrictions or time zones. And then telecommuting, you're not generally expected to come to the office, but you might have to.
Okay. The way I argue it is telework is where I'm able to interact with others from any location. Telecommuting is simply where the work is still being done at a single place at a single time. It's just that that single place and single time doesn't necessarily have to be the brick and mortar location where the work is done. So when I'm writing an essay, for example, I can write that essay in a computer lab here at work, or I can do it at home. But I'm still doing it on a specific station. Now, if I'm doing that work and I'm doing it in, for example, a Google Doc, where somebody else is logged in and is working on the exact same thing at the exact same time, that's telework instead of telecommuting. Commuting is where the work gets done. Telework is what is being done. So having conference calls on Skype would suggest that idea of telework, multiple people interacting, not just where they are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
Okay.
is.
Also, thank you for kind of
right.
explaining that a little bit more. That was a little confusing for me also.
Okay, does that make a little more sense though?
Yeah, no, that definitely makes more sense. Where telecommuting is just where you are, and telework is just
What kind of work
that you're doing. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, Jackson, are you with us? Jackson going once. Jackson going twice. Okay, Billy, are you with us?
I am.
All right, what would you like to answer?
Can I do 46?
Number 46, let's see. Yes, you can. You're a little faint.
Can you hear me a little better now?
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so I think the gig economy is replacing the traditional working environment, but just like slowly. Like you have a lot of like little pop-up shops and people that kind of do random things that you wouldn't really think of for work, but I don't think it will ever become like bigger than the traditional work environment just because so many jobs do require it to be like in person or like actually employed through a company.
Okay, I think this one's kind of like the artificial intelligence discussion or the automation question we were talking about in the past. So, you know, for example, some examples of gig economies, Uber and Lyft. DoorDash is becoming a much bigger thing, especially since COVID, right? So these are all examples of gig where there is no long-term relationship between employer and employee. It's based on the actual task. So a friend of mine was, you know, there was a Facebook conversation that I saw with some friends of mine who were saying, tell me how much you got paid at your first job. And one guy said, I got paid 4 cents per 100 pounds or per 100 pound bags of potatoes. He would bag potatoes and he got paid by the bag. That's an example of a gig economy, right? He worked while there were potatoes to be sorted, and as soon as the potatoes were gone, he was gone, right? He got paid by the piece. So I think, to be honest with you, I see gig economies as increasing. For example, gig economy is adjunct instructors at universities. I'm only teaching this class. I'm not working for the university in a broader sense. I'm not part of the university committee or community. I am simply here to teach this class, and I am paid for this class, and that's it. At some universities, up to 75% of instructors are adjunct instructors. Scares the hell out of me. 75% of faculty are adjunct, because that way they don't have to pay benefits.
I was thinking like YouTube, Twitch, Etsy, all of these online medias in which you not only get money from products you're given, but ad revenue and passive income stream, where you can build a very big amount of wealth without actually having to do more. So it's super appealing because what you've already done builds you more wealth.
Which is true, and it's great for those who can get it. But it can leave you well, there's a couple of things. First of all, it leaves you incredibly exposed. That you're not locked into a lot of the traditional compensation processes that provided, I mean, for example, health insurance. Because we have decided to tie health insurance to benefited positions, there are a lot of people who are underemployed. Meaning they stay at a job because of the benefits, even though the work itself is not meaningful to them. But they can't leave because of the benefits that are associated with that. And that's a big problem. It also is, and this is another thing that was brought to my attention, for example, the growth of the food truck. And how excited people are about food trucks. Food trucks create a couple of different huge possibilities. What are some of the possibilities or benefits of food trucks?
You don't have to get a restaurant. Like in Boise, you just walk on the streets, you can get mac and cheese, and you can get hot dogs.
It creates an incredibly diverse food experience, right? What are some other benefits?
Move around.
I can move it where I need it to be. So I can take advantage of demographic shifts. I can be here at lunchtime and I can move over here at dinner, and I can move over here for the weekends. So I'm not locked into a physical location. Also, the costs of operation tend to be much, much smaller. I don't have to pay for the space and the facilities that traditional restaurants provide, right? But there are also significant challenges. The biggest is they normally don't pay the same kinds of property taxes. Why is that a big deal? That sounds great, man. I don't have to pay the government taxes. Why would that be a big deal?
I mean, it's still an operating business.
It's an operating business and they'll pay business tax, but there are a lot of things in the community that are paid for specifically by property taxes. One of the big ones is education, right? We just had a levy, right? Which was a loan taken out by education to pay for educational activities. That loan is paid for by increases in property tax. So if I have businesses that are operating and don't pay property tax, guess what happens? It's harder to pay for local education, right? It's harder to pay for city maintenance. If you have a problem driving on streets that have potholes and stuff like that, that's how those get taken care of, right? Businesses aren't paying for that. There's no consistency there. They aren't becoming ingrained in the city to the same way that brick and mortar places do. But brick and mortar places can be harder to stay open, right? I just think about how many restaurants open in Pocatello and Chubbuck and are gone. I mean, think about it. We've lost Chili's, we've lost Popeyes, we lost Chipotle, we lost Red Lobster.
What?
Yeah,
I was shocked on that one.
When?
But I think it's.
a couple weeks ago. They just closed out of the blue. And the list goes on and on. Ketchup burrito. But my point is, there are pluses and minuses to these things, and gig economies are becoming more and more relevant. But it also begs the question that when we attach so much of our regular traditional economy to traditional economy, and we started growing in these other non-traditional economies, how do we maintain the continuity of life? For example, when you have people that are working for Uber or Lyft and are not considered full-time employees, that means they don't get benefits. And if they don't get benefits, they either have to pay for those benefits themselves, or they have to apply for government assistance. That's harmful to the overall group if more and more people require assistance, which begs the question, should we be tying these kinds of things to our regular employment? And again, I keep getting into this and I'm just going to shut up. All right. Let's see, Anthony, I think you're up.
Yeah, is 29 available?
29 is not.
Gosh dang. I can try to answer a different question.
Why don't I come back? I'll give you a couple and then I'll come back to you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, Jack, are you with us?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, what do you got?
I'll go ahead and answer 26.
26.
Yeah, it says, what is a positive workplace safety outcome from the use of robots? And the answer is B, employees can be protected from dangerous work.
Yeah. Classic, I mean, think about working in a foundry or crab fishing. It's deadly as, crab fishing or deep sea fishing is considered one of the most dangerous employments in the world. If I could create robots that were pulling that stuff in, first of all, they'd be more efficient at it, they'd be faster at it, and they'd be safer. I mean, if we could create something that could handle that.
Yeah, this is actually something that we've talked about quite a bit in our nuclear classes, because obviously in the nuclear field, and the reading talked about this too with Fukushima, but it's pretty common in the nuclear energy field because a lot of times you will have like a room with a super high radiation field. And if all you need is someone to go in there and change that valve, then I'm pretty happy to lose that job to a robot.
Yeah, I mean, the entire concept of glove box operations. The more that we could allow remote control of things in super irradiated areas would be highly beneficial. You know, Winter was talking about the danger of having a robotic surgeon where they have complete autonomy when they're doing things. But if you think about the precision that robotic manipulated instruments can have, where I'm sitting in a control room using a joystick to do the cutting, that's incredibly more precise and incredibly less invasive than traditional surgery, right? If I can have a scalpel with a camera attached to it, I can make a very small incision and do surgery compared to I have to open up the entire human body to see what I'm doing because I'm relying on human sight. These are differences that could dramatically, I mean, when you look at the robotic surgery and laser surgery and the recovery times for those kinds of things, insanely different. Yeah.
That just happened to a friend of mine. They went to the hair TV and they were kidding.
Yeah, and it was a completely unintentional error, but it could have huge implications. Whereas I've had friends that had hysterectomies that instead of having this massive invasive surgery, it was 3 small cuts and they were up and running 3 weeks later. That is a massive change in healing time for a pretty significant surgery. Winter.
I was just gonna say they have like tools. I don't know what they're called, but they're like you just make a tiny incision and you basically stick like a robot arm in their like insides, and then you just do it that way. That's
Yeah.
why my appendix removed. But,
Yeah.
Like I was fine. Like I literally went to homecoming 2 days later. So
Yeah, because they don't have to because they are able to minimize the invasiveness of the surgery. It's insane what they're able to accomplish now. And we're now even moving into micro and nano surgery, where we can even send in robots to clean arteries by just injecting them. The robots are micro or nano sized things that can clean out an artery by ingesting a tablet rather than having to have open heart surgery. I mean, think about how dangerous open heart surgery is and compare that with swallowing a tablet where nanobots come in and clean out an artery. It's insane. It's crazy, but it's reality. It's moving closer all the time. All right, let's see, Porter.
If I'm able to, can I jump back in?
That would be fine, just as long as you don't steal Porter's question.
Also, I do have a question.
All right.
Is that true about the nanobot thing you were just saying?
I believe that I don't have any specifics, but I think it's pretty darn close.
Okay. Porter, were you going to do number 31?
No, go ahead.
Oh, sick. Okay, so number 31 is true or false, employers offer more benefits for more expected work, is about what the question asked. And I do believe that that's true because they're not going to offer more if they don't expect that. They're putting more value into you because they expect you to get more out of it. Or they expect to get more out of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, I agree that that's a prevailing view, but I don't necessarily believe that employers offer more perks just because, I don't necessarily agree that employers offer perks just because they want to get more out of the employee.
Oh, okay. That's not fully what I'm saying. I'm also
I think that that's a common attitude or belief, but I don't necessarily think that that's actually true. But please continue. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay. I like to hear other points of views. Because like if I'm working at one company and they're giving me my pay that I get now, and then a different company comes up to Okay. You your skills more so that they're paying you or giving you more benefits. I guess that would make sense also.
Okay. But I think that what we're talking about, for example, let's talk about Google. And remember, we've read about this before, that Google offers an incredible number of amenities at their workplace. At-desk massages, food carts that they'll bring around and feed you at your desk, on-site health spas, gyms, and childcare. They offer all of these things and incredibly high pay, but I don't know that that means that they expect you to be there 20 hours a day. But they realize that the higher the morale is, the higher the thing is, that the number one, they will be more productive, but there are certain aspects of creativity that just require positive mental attitude. That just, if I take care of humans on their end, they will increase productivity on their own, and they can at least produce the kind of creative work that I need them to.
Also,
So,
part of the thing that I was saying is not that they'll spend more time there, is that the quality. If someone pays me more for the same job I was doing somewhere else, I'm definitely going to try to do even better than what I was doing already at the last business, because I see that like this company puts value into me. So I'm going to try to do my best for them.
Yep, I agree with that. Okay, Porter.
Can I do number 11?
Number 11.
Nope.
Probably. Caden, I think you already went, so you're nice try. Okay, go for it.
So how is a company town similar to a corporate campus? And that is all employees must work there.
Okay, slightly different, I would agree.
Oh, no.
No, you're right. I'm sorry. Yeah, how is a company town similar to a corporate campus? All employees must work there. What's the difference then between a corporate campus and a company town?
What's different? So company town. So isn't a corporate campus everyone has to live there?
Corporate campus, they don't, but at a company town, they do.
Oh, the other way around.
Yeah. So yeah, corporate campus is, I go there and they have gyms and they have food, so that, for example, when I get a lunch break, I don't have to go someplace else to eat. I can eat in the same location. I can work out in the same location. I can get childcare in the same location. So it keeps me at work more effectively. I don't have to leave early to get my kid. I don't have to leave early or come back late from lunch because I'm eating in the same place I work. Okay? What's the biggest problem with a company town? Especially historically.
It's run by the company, so they set prices and they set everything.
I was gonna say, doesn't the company town kind of own all the like businesses or, restaurants and stuff like that within the town?
Well, if you've ever heard the song 16 Tons, and what do you get another day older and deeper in debt? St. Peter, don't you call me because I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. That was based on old coal towns where literally everything was owned by the company and they charged such exorbitant rates, you never broke even. You were always working to pay off the debt you needed to survive. You got paid $2.50, but a meal cost you $5. So the entire time, and just surviving there was accruing debt that you would never be able to pay off just by the wages you earned. Your wages were immediately absorbed by the company. You would never break even. So they would create company towns so your family could live there because you could never send money back home to the family to care for them. It was the only way to survive was to bring the family with you and pay for the debt that it costs to keep them alive. So that's why you had kids in the coal mines at the ages of 7, 8, and 9. Because they literally had to work, because feeding them put you deeper in debt. So they would be expected to do things in a coal mine at the age of 7. Anyway, yeah, if you ever want to watch the movie Matewan, Matewan, if you want to see what it was like to live in the coal mines and the difficulties that people found when they tried to break the company control over them. Matewan. It's a true story. I want to say it's in West Virginia, and it was about how miners tried to break company control over coal mining, and it is heartbreaking. All right, Zach, are you with us?
Yeah.
All right, what would you like to do?
25.
What's that?
25.
25. Okay, go for it.
So it says, what's the most significant employee relations issue to be considered when expanding the use of artificial intelligence? I'm going to say A, retraining of workers.
Yep. What am I going to do with the human workers if they are no longer working? There was an interesting commercial a couple of years ago where this woman was working in it was an animated commercial about this woman that was working as a lap and mill operator in a company. And she was at her mill and she was surrounded by like 20 other guys that were all working mills. And those guys started to get replaced by computers. And she was the last one, and she lost her job, got replaced by a computer, and then went and got a degree in IT. Does this sound familiar at all?
I remember that.
You remember this one? That's it. What do I do with the person that gets outsourced by technology? And am I able to train them? And are people willing to be retrained? Especially when we look at the people that are being retrained tend to be individuals who have been employed for a long period of time, typically blue collar jobs that haven't required it. They require a high level of skill, but not a high level of education. And when they get replaced, are they willing and able to get that training? I talked about FMC and what it was like when I first came here to the university, with guys that were in their 50s that had mortgages and auto payments and had to go through a new degree, and how freaked out they were. We talk about retraining, but there's a lot of emotional and physical things involved in that. All right, Tanner.
Yeah, 42, please.
42, okay.
How and why would a company institute job sharing? So how is, I'm going to say like a split shift kind of thing. You've got you're going to have several part-time workers working shorter shifts instead of full-time guys working full shifts. And the why, it's because it's going to save the company money because they're not paying out for benefits.
So why would the employee be interested in a job sharing plan?
I mean, I think of students, as mentioned in the comments of the reading, students don't want to work full, well, maybe they do, but I don't want to work full time while I'm in class. And so if I had a part-time job, it makes it easier to be able to focus on school and still be able to have some income to survive.
Okay. Also, with job sharing, because I'm not paying for benefits and other full-time perks, I can actually pay people more because I'm not having to pay benefits. I can take that and I can increase what you would normally make in a part-time. You can make more money in the part-time per hour than you would in a full-time job just because you're not getting all of those things. So people that are looking for part-time or less time work can get paid better than they would if they were working in other places. Okay? All right, Scott? Scott going once. Scott going twice. Kyle? Kyle going once. Kyle going twice. All right, Haley? Haley going once. All right, Sam?
You're number 45.
Number 45.
So ethical issues I see with automation is first, there's less jobs. Automation cannot make ethical decisions if needed. Employees will have to fear the potential of losing their job at any time, and less blue-collar jobs, which means there's a greater need for education.
Okay, excellent. One other thing that I would point out about increased automation is it also begs the question of production. If I have companies that can now work around the clock producing things without having to take time off, they can produce more, which increases pollution, it increases waste, it increases just the use of natural resources because because the number of things that a computer can produce in an hour versus a human that gets tired or slows down or anything like that, I can maintain ultimate or the highest level of productivity for a longer period of time.
Yeah, and I without going too deep into economics, it also contributes to monopolies and the power that one person has over anybody else trying to get in the market. Example, McDonald's French fries. McDonald's buys all the potatoes to make French fries, and no one else sells potatoes for potato-based products.
Okay. All right. So we've got about 5 or 6 minutes. So I am going to end the share and break you guys into some groups so that you can discuss the toilets and telephone, which I thought was an interesting one. So I'm going to break you guys up, go for about 5-10 minutes, and then we're good for the day.
Pretty great. I would wager we're all probably on the same side on this issue. Do we all agree toilets are more important than cell phones?
I disagree.
I disagree.
Okay. Well, I'll argue the other point again.
You mentioned taxes, and I heard you say that, so I think we both have a different idea of that tax.
Of what?
The tax system.
So in India, there's a problem where you have extremely wealthy and extremely poor. The issue is because the wealthy want to maintain their wealth, there's less contributions that go into the poor. And so you have the wealthy that have all these facilities, there are no contributions to having those facilities built for the poor. Like in America, our government really does put a lot of money towards making sure that people have the essentials. Yeah. That's not necessarily not necessarily what's happening over there.
Yeah. So one thing is that don't lose the thought so you can continue on. Because with the caste system, that lower level of humanity, I don't they're called untouchables. They can't move before them.
And they can't break out of that.
It's a system where you can't move up.
Right.
But the argument that I make, and I was talking about this before class began, it kind of implies colonial thinking. For us to say, well, plumbing should be more important than telephones, is because that's how we live. And we live in a society where indoor running plumbing has become so common that we assume that it is a necessity for everybody else. But plumbing does not generate, it does not allow for communications. It does not allow for commerce like cell phones do. I can make money with a cell phone. I can't necessarily make money with plumbing other than installing it or maintaining it. But it's arrogant for me to say that because I live in a place where I have access to both, that I should make the decision for another country as to whether or not they should do that. That implies that my way of living it's a cultural thing. And it's kind of what we call colonialism, is this idea that I am more enlightened and I know more than this other country, therefore I'm going to impose, because they're not smart enough to make that decision for themselves. And like I was saying before class, India has nuclear weapons. India has just as many, if not more, PhDs than the United States. They have just as many well-educated doctors as any place else. This is not a country that does not have this technology. It's that they have made intentional decisions as to how they're going to use that wealth. And for me to therefore second guess it says that they do not have the intelligence to do that themselves. And that's a very harmful attitude. But at the same time, we also look at the health impacts of not having clean sanitary water and clean sanitary conditions. And so it does beg the question of those that are making the decisions that are not pushing sanitation as a primary thing. Well, they're building infrastructure for cell phones. So we do beg the question of, is it right? But it's not. But I would argue that the real question is, should I even have an opinion? I'm not an Indian. I do not come from this place. I do not have a legitimate stakeholder position to argue this.
I was kind of wondering too when I was looking at this, like how am I going to write this, because there's two different sides to the. So I can't make an ethical decision for another place, you know.
Well, so then if you feel like you can't make an ethical, you should not take an ethical position on this. Explain to the ethics of why you shouldn't be involved. Okay.
Yeah.
That would be, and so it would probably be a rights or a deontology. I do not have an obligation to these people. I do not know them. I'm not invested in them. So therefore, it's not right for me to have an opinion. Make that as your argument. Whether or not they should have toilets or telephones, they are adults who are, they're educated enough to be able to make that decision themselves. They have more than enough. It's not that this group of people doesn't know that plumbing exists.
Or maybe they're just comfortable with how they are now. I don't know.
Well, another thing is putting in that plumbing. I mean, if you were to try to go and modernize these cities that have gotten huge, the cost and difficulty of, for example, if I have an apartment building that doesn't have modern plumbing, it's nearly going to be impossible to try and install it. And we're talking about cities of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, where that infrastructure does not exist. How do I put it in?
Yeah, it would cost a lot just to put that in there.
Think about here in Pocatello when they try to fix roads or fix plumbing.
Yeah.
If you've ever had a water line break, it is a serious problem. And you're talking a city of millions of people and you're going to try to provide it for everybody. It's nearly impossible.
And I feel that if you station big areas that people can utilize.
But the thing is well, I'm not saying they can't do it, but should I be telling them what they should or they are more than, I mean, there are sanitation engineers that live there that understand these concepts.
Now, we only have to do 8 write-ups if we choose not to do more.
Yes. Okay, here's how it's going. I'm dropping the 4 lowest scores. So.
If we already have 400, we can stop.
No, if you have, you're going to have the highest 8 scores. So, for example, if you've done 8 and you're just, look, I can't do this anymore, that's fine. That's not going to hurt you. If you have 8 done and man, I'd like to get the score higher, then do that. I just leave it up to you so that, look, I have run out of time to be able to handle this class and all my others. I have to make some intelligent decisions. Then you can just say, look, I just got to call it here. And what this does is it says that I've run out of time to work on those papers. I can't do those anymore, so I'm not going to do them. It's not going to hurt your grade as much as if I graded all 12 and you got 4 zeros. That's kind of how I'm running. So whatever's going to work best for you is kind of how I've set it up.
Totally different subject compared to the next class. So this is what I come up with on the lab.
So is this when you're done?
Yep, we are done.
This doesn't.
I also sent you an email about what I might want to do my dilemma thing for now.
Okay, I haven't looked at it yet, but I
That's
will.
what I got from McKinsey, and I have to run out.
I will take a look at it and I'll try to get back to you.
Yeah, it was something with, because I'm going into radiology, so it's about like finding errors and x-rays like later on.
And what should I do
Who
about
takes
it?
responsibility for all
Yeah.
these things.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Wrong button.